there somehow is like fans somehow have been separated from like, you know, music fans, TV fans, and then like sports fans, you know, sports fans are somehow seen as like, this is their mission or whatever. Like they really are, you know, strongly into this. But I'm like, it's the same thing. Like it's the same mechanism driving all of the fans, really. So
sports fans are a little older because I guess we're just like, okay, these dudes, they need something to spend their time with so they don't pillage something. So let's give them a football game, you know?
That's so true. It's like, yeah, that's true. Although sometimes I know in the UK, there's like the aggression still spills over into real life, like depending on the losses and the, when the teams lose, like there's an increase in like violence and stuff like that.
When they win, they tear apart the city.
I know. I feel like maybe it's different targets. Like maybe they tear down like the actual city when they win because they're like, yay. And then when they lose, they're like fighting each other, perhaps. I'm trying to think. Like I'm not a sports fan, but I have seen, you know, I've seen them.
I'll introduce you real quick. Everybody, we're back with Monia Ali from Exiled Fan. She's talking to us about fandom, online fandom, and we're already halfway in the conversation right now. I feel that sports fans, I feel that there's just this energy and it just gets expressed however it's going to get expressed. So sports fans, they're kind of like in this haze, like when you dance too much, you know, the DJ's going and you got drinks in you and you're not even thinking for yourself anymore. You're just part of the mob.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and sports have a different, like there's a narrative to a game, right? Or a match or a set or whatever the words are. But if you're going, I mean, it's the same sort of system as going to a concert where the experience is like kind of a high, but with a narrative and you're like, we're going against each other. I feel like that creates more of what you're saying, like this like intensity. Because if you're just at a concert, I mean, you'll feel that group. I mean, you can feel that euphoria, but it's just like, oh, it's the music and we're feeling it, you know, it's more of a positive overall experience. I feel like perhaps, you know.
I don't know what it is. It's getting into that primitive aspect of you. Now the concert is very interesting because it's like they're not casting spells on you, but there's something to do with the music. And I'm convinced that sets off something completely different, but as primal as the sports and competition.
The music and the crowd. The crowd is really important too. It's like that you're part of a group of people and you're presumably experiencing the same sort of like, you know, joy at being there. And I feel like, I mean, I've experienced what I've called post-concert depression. I don't know if that's familiar to you. No? There's so many people I've told this to, and they're like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? But I'm like, this is a thing though, isn't it? Like you go to a concert, you're like, this is so good. And then you're kind of like, oh, what's the point? Like
of going on after the concert, now that the concert's over?
Kind of, yeah. Like where you're like, oh, they're going to the next city and they're like doing this all over again. And we're just like, we just have to carry on. And this isn't even necessarily fandom related. Like I've had that experience just at amazing concerts where you're like, wow.
Do you think that's like peak and then valley kind of in moods that you expressed all of your energy and now you're like the day after Christmas? It's supposed to be Boxing Day, but what are we doing?
I think so. I think that's what it is. Because I found like one... I found there's like a Backstreet Boys site that has all of this old information. I'm like, this is so useful because I keep scrolling back and I can find all of this old stuff. And there was someone who was like writing about a post-concert depression. I was like, oh my God, someone knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. That's
well, I went to your website, Exiled Fans.
Yes.
Exiled Fan, and I was first looking at Astroturfing by any other name, but we can come back to that because I read this article, and I guess this is from February. It's called "Love Beyond Reason: The Consecration of Fandom," where you get into how people are treating celebrities as icons Is it like idolatry, golden calf kind of stuff?
Definitely idolatry. And I think that they don't even realize it, because as I was like, a lot of the stuff that I've been writing about, like the extremes of fandom, because then I also I'll go over the academic fandom texts, and a lot of them have just like very matter of fact, where I'm like, I don't think they've experienced this side of it. And I think that's the only reason I can even write about it, because like, it wasn't like that before, but it's really turned into this thing where, and this is something I'm still working on, but I feel like what happened is fandom is about energy going towards the group. You have a community, and it's a community, and you do things for each other. There's like a gift economy, there's exchanges, and it's all very, well, obviously there'll be fights and stuff, but it is overall very cohesive. What happens now is the energy is directed towards the celebrity or the show or the franchise. So if suddenly it's, instead of us being turned towards each other to like, have communication and creativity within, the group, it turns into like, actually all of our energy goes towards the actual object. And I feel like that's what people always thought that fans and fandom did.
They concentrate their energy on one thing.
Yeah.
Focused energy, focused will.
Yeah.
To make that thing more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff. When you think about the concepts, you've made One Direction so powerful.
Yeah.
Or whatever, whatever, the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I don't want to put all of this on like My Chemical Romance, but I've been thinking a lot about how when My Chemical Romance entered the scene, like one of their big things, and I don't think this was label pushed because they were independent for quite some time when they were working on this, but they would say like, we want to save lives, like MCR saves lives. How? Basically. And that sort of, because if you're depressed and you listen to them and you're like, yes, and they definitely have a lot of, I don't know how familiar you are with them. So they definitely have a lot of dark songs, but overall there's a very positive message. That's like, if you just think of one of the lyrics, it's like, I'm not afraid to keep on living. Like, that's basically it. It's like, everything is awful, but I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Some people need to hear that, and you kind of gravitate toward the song you need to hear at the time, the breakup songs. You put those in the playlist when you're breaking up. So maybe that's good. You mentioned actually, and I'm sorry, I don't know much about My Chemical Romance.
Oh, that's fine. It's just like, I just keep thinking about that. I'm like, how much pressure did they put on themselves? Like after a while, once fans started to be like, you did save my life. And then like, you must have this like thing of like, oh my God, people are depending on us now, like actually depending on us, not just, well, we like your music, but because I know people will tell musicians, like there's always fan stories of like, oh, I finally met them and I got to say like, oh, you saved me, and all of these dark things that like, you helped me overcome this. And then they're just like, okay, I somehow did that while I was living my life. I hope that's good. So it's like, I can't imagine that having to be aware of it, but at the same time knowing that you didn't actually do anything. Like, how do you even...
You keep doing what you were doing. I guess you have no choice. You just keep going as you were going before.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what you did, except that you were doing it, you can't change anything at this point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is pressure in it of itself. Because you're like, if I want to take a break and have kids or whatever, oh no, am I going to be letting these people down?
Mm-hmm.
Here's something that's really interesting from this article. Y'all talk about the Dolly Parton effect.
Yeah.
This person, Ty Ullman, this person says that Dolly Parton cured her high blood pressure and depression.
Yeah, I think Ty Ullman did the movie, I don't think I included the name of the woman who said that.
It just says Gross's account, including Dolly Parton fan, and the movie... The movie is by
the documentarian who covered, she covered so she was reflecting on what they said, that it was like, they do see her as a religious figure. And they do put the name of the woman who talked about curing her medications. But I was like, well, your name is in this book. People can look it up if they want. I'm not going to like put you on blast again. But yeah, there's like people it's an amazing book, Starstruck, Michael Joseph Ross. he gets to talk to these fans and really gets to that feeling with them. So yeah, there's like a Dolly Parton fan that's like, I got to go off all my medications. I'm so happy now. Like I have meaning in my life now, and, you know, like something to sort of look towards. And I'm assuming kind of a community. The Dolly Parton fans, I'm not a Parton head or whatever they're called. But she has Dollywood, right? And so there's like that whole thing is a separate aspect, and how they go and they'll meet her and stuff like that. He also spoke to a lot of Michael Jackson fans and was there with them, like outside of his house waiting. And it's so fascinating because if you just see those fans, you're like, oh, you crazies. Like, you know, you just took vacation from work and you're there. But a lot of them have met, or well, Michael Jackson has now passed, but at the time, like they got to hang out with him because sometimes he'd go out and be like, I'm going to have a movie night. Do you guys want to come? So then he'd just invite in like 20 of the fans that would always be like outside his door and just like have a hangout, you know? So even though like you look at them like these people, they still have, like they have something that they're clinging to because they know that they'll still, like it's a very unique relationship that I don't think you could necessarily bridge in any way. Like you can't go from waiting outside of the gate to like, I live in this house now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something measurable. If her high blood pressure and depression was cured, that's measurable. It might be the placebo effect. And I do believe we can cure most of our illnesses if we're willing to eat better and exercise. So if Dolly gave this person the motivation to do this, or Jesus, people say about Jesus all the time. They go to the church and the church groups, everybody gets together. They go for walks together, even if they're walking to stalk someone or they're walking to, you know, walk, they're still walking.
Yeah.
So they go on these walks, eat better, are motivated to eat better. She's off 5 medications. I mean, how can you argue with that?
Yeah. Yeah. And like blood pressure and stuff like that, probably like a lot of it could be like stress related, but once you sort of have, I mean, a lot of it depends on your environment, and you can definitely change a lot depending on where you are. But yeah, that's definitely, that's what stands sound like when everything is going well. It's like, oh my God, I'm cured of everything. But yeah, the placebo effect, or like our own brains are so powerful. So I completely agree with you. Like as long as you're given something to believe in, I mean,
so we could believe in anything. It could be Jesus, it could be Buddha, flying spaghetti monster, Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton hasn't let anyone down.
As far
never
as
molested anybody. As far as I don't want to hear anything bad about Dolly Parton ever.
I know, that's why I'm telling you, like, don't be saying definitive things like that, because that's like asking, it's like asking for trouble.
I'll plug up my ears. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything bad about her. I kind of have this feeling where we know too much about our celebrities and we don't let them just be myths in the sky. Like, I don't need to know this person's sordid love affairs. I don't want to. And this is kind of a problematic thing to think, but when they brought Ellen down and all those people who used to watch Ellen every day, and now they have to think, oh my God, was this a lie? Was that worth it? Could they just have asked her to resign in private and just left it alone? Left those old people alone?
That kind of thing always frustrates me, because it's like, so you're telling us this was going on for years and not a single person tried to improve things. Okay. So it almost seems like you have to put up with all of this awful stuff and like wait for the dam breaking, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't we deal with issues as they go and possibly improve them? Like, I mean, I'm assuming she's the boss, but if there had been work on it, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Like, she could have improved her managing style, or, you know,
some of these celebrities, you can't talk to them like normal people.
Oh, no.
Because they not some of they surround themselves with yes men, but it's this one person has so much power and influence. Mm-hmm. So the people around them just become yes men just to maintain paying their mortgages and stuff like that. It's not like they try to do it. It just happens. And it's like, well, you don't want to displease Ellen. The last thing you want is for Ellen to be like, you know what, I don't want to go and work with this person. They might just say, move them over here. But that move them over here is you're off the studio lot. Figure out a way to make your mortgage. Hope another studio hires you. It's such a big risk. So it is much easier for the individual just to go along with it until there's enough of a crowd where your job will be safe or your life will be safe if you challenge it. Yeah, I feel really bad for these people who are stuck in these situations.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost, I've been thinking about that because that happens a lot. And the bartering where like, oh, you offended this publicist. So now this publicist is like, none of my clients will ever go on Ellen, right? And I'm like, is this partially where, I don't think this is the sole reason, but I feel like it's very similar to the way that people try to cancel things where it's like, well, I will withdraw all of my stuff now and go have fun in the cold, basically, where it's like the same tactic kind of. And I'm like, that's so interesting. And also like how many careers, like how many people have not, been in the spotlight because they like said something early on.
A lot. You'll never work in this town again. Now, here's the thing. Just stick around. I've had a few you'll never work in this town again moments, but you just got to stick it out.
Yeah.
Because memories are short. People get fired. Things switch around. There'll be another publicist. You just don't want them talking smack about you to the whole city. So, yes, it can happen. It's a very, very stupid thing to piss off a powerful person in Hollywood. And if I could go back, I never would do it. But
wait, did you know that you were pissing them off?
Oh yeah, no, I was horrible. I was just a mouthy little kid. And but you know what? Just stick around and just keep doing it. But yeah, a lot of people, especially if you have a mortgage, and you have a kid, you keep your mouth shut. Like there's no option. You can't survive those 5 or 6 years where you're blacklisted, basically. And they'll blacklist people. I'm not going to name any names.
But, I have stories that can be sourced but tell me yours. But yeah.
This particular person had the number one show on television, the number one sitcom, and they thought they could still run their mouth. To a person who didn't have the number one show, but wrote the checks for all the shows, like a studio head. That studio head blacklisted that person, and that person to this day is not working in the mainstream. I didn't do anything like that, but like there are people behind the scenes that are powerful enough to ruin your name.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I asked if you knew that you were making someone angry because one of my most like insane stories is this came out through the Sony Pictures leak. Once again, very useful leak because none of it is PR filtered, right? You're just like, this is just what happened. And there was a manager, like a power manager, like this, referred to as very, very powerful. Their email exchange was they wanted a DVD copy of sex tape for their yacht to screen on their yacht. And they were denied. And what happened? They were like, we will never, they're like, our clients are never going to be working with you again. Like, you just went off about it. And I'm like, sex tape DVD, Cameron Diaz and Jason Segel. Like, you're going, I haven't seen that movie, but I kind of guess it's not great. This is how, what?
Ego.
DVD. You don't get to screen a DVD on your yacht. And you've decided to be like,
you give them the DVD to screen on the yacht. Like, first off, they got a yacht and they're making this request. And they have the number, they have everyone else's number. They can trash talk you all over town. Just give them the DVD.
Yeah, no, truly. It's like, okay.
Well, this is group dynamics. It's like you don't be this individual to piss off the group. But if there's 20, 30, 40 of you, then you can all come in with your gripes from over the years. But that one person, because you don't want to get fired because this, and this. Everyone here is shallow. They're so shallow and like superficial. And they probably told someone they're going to watch this on the yacht. And now they can't. So they have to ruin people's careers, take someone's college fund away by making the parent unemployed.
Yeah, no, it drives me bananas. And even just what you said about the yes men, I feel like there are two documentaries that just explore this really, really well. And one is the Avicii documentary, True Stories, I think. Avicii True Stories, I think it was called. And it was released while he was still alive. Like, it was a documentary that was supposed to like bookend his live career, because what happened is he said he was going to stop performing live because it was like affecting him so much. So it covers all of that. And the things that you see with his friends and his manager, who I apparently lived next door to, like my mom keeps, every single time I mention this documentary, she's like, well, you know, we used to live by that manager's house. I'm like, what? Okay. But you'll see them talking and saying things where I'm already like, I can't believe they included this in the documentary.
I have to see this.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so
What did
good.
they say? Like, what kind of yes man stuff were they saying?
So, for example, this is very much towards the end. So he'll be Avicii would be talking, and he'd say like, "Oh, I told you like not to book. Like, I told you not to book me at any festivals because I just can't handle it." They're like, "Yeah, but this festival is like, 50,000 people," and he's like, "But I can't do it." It's like, well, what if we just try to negotiate with him about it? And at a certain point, he does say, he's like, if I keep doing this, I'm going to die. Like, I can't do it. And they're just like, ooh. And then you see his friends awkwardly standing around in a Las Vegas suit, just being like, oh, well, we don't want to have to leave. Like, what if you just like take like a calming, like very much just, well, why can't you? Like, why can't you do it? It's just like a little thing. Like, what do you mean you can't? Like, just man up, it feels like they're trying to tell him. And the manager was interviewed individually, and he was very like, oh, he doesn't understand that people like him because he has money and he can do things for them. And maybe he'll realize one day that once that's gone, no one's going to give a shit. Like, and you're like, this is in the documentary, where I'm like, how many, like, what are they saying outside of that? Like, it's insane to me. And then I almost said Whitney Spears, but no, Whitney Houston. There's two documentaries about her.
I can't with Whitney. She was such a talent. She was such an amazing. I still listen to her almost every day. Like the voice of an angel. She could really
let down by everyone. Like when you watch that and you're like, wow. She had one person that was in her corner, and that was Robin. Like a childhood friend, and that person was ousted because she was like, she's on drugs, she has to stop, like we got to do something. And her parents were just like, well, we don't like you, so this is a perfect opportunity to get rid of you, and then we can just be with Whitney for what, like the last 5 years of her life, because like she didn't live through like, it's just. And like one of the documentaries has a former security guy who went with her overseas, and he like sent a report to his like employers for this gig, and saying like, this is what was going on. There was these drugs, there was these people. He's like, this is not a safe environment. Like, you need to do something. And then he was just relieved of duties. They were just like, okay, cool, go home.
Don't make waves. But what happened to her, and this is, I think, what happens when nobody can be honest with you. And you do control the purse strings for everyone and everything, just your slightest whim decides all these things. And so many people are making too much money off of it. Like, I mean, you said Britney Houston, but like, it's the same thing with Britney Spears. It's just like, they don't want to hear that this person has internal trauma. They need to work through things. They need to take a few days off to go to a retreat or whatever. They do want to work them
like a horse.
Yeah.
Like Britney to me is one of those examples where it's so insane to me, because okay, let's say she legitimately needed a conservatorship. Like, isn't there a better way to treat her than having her perform in Vegas every night? Like,
she was a slave.
Yeah. Like, how is this helping
There's no other
her
way
mental health if that's what you supposedly are working on? Like, you're basically putting her through like work camps. Like, what is this? How is this for her benefit? Yeah, it's all the child stars.
You could not pay me to be a child star. Like looking back on it, I wouldn't want to get famous even a week before as old as I am now, because her husband didn't love her. He didn't love her. Not this one. This one's good. I think this one's good as far as I know. But the one who came in and wanted the fame and all these other stuff, had the children by her, and then he just wanted to be famous. He was just a leech.
Yeah,
and all these people, the thing is, no one who's not a leech is going to even interact with one of these celebrities because it is so messy. And then you're going to end up on TMZ and you're going to end up in the tabloids. No one in their right mind is going to talk to these people unless there's something wrong with you. Or you happen to like them from childhood or whatever. But like, imagine being friends with Britney Spears right now. Imagine being friends with one of the Kardashians right now. Imagine being friends with Meghan Markle. Like, why? Why would you make friends with them at this stage in your life?
Yeah, that's what drives me. I still don't understand the Kardashians and how. Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, we're friends. I'm like, how is this even? So even the like highly publicized, Courtney and Travis thing. I'm like, what is this? Like, what is going on? This is weird.
I get why famous people get together because they can understand each other.
Yeah.
They can understand, like, I've been isolated. Everyone wants something from me. So it's like by default, at least you understand what it's like.
Yep.
To have people picking at you all the time.
Yeah.
That's, do you remember those stories like the Mayans, how they used to sacrifice a person every year or a girl, and they would take her in and they would, give her the dress and the good food and all this other stuff. And at the end of the year, they would sacrifice her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, to a certain extent, these are a lot of our young pop stars. Like, we just lavish everything on them, isolate them, lavish things on them. And then when it's time for their sacrifice, all the cameras come out and we just enjoy.
Yeah, the cameras come out and the public is so eager to participate because they've been built up based on nothing. Like, it's not someone who's been working for 20 years to get to where they are. It's like, Backstreet Boys going on a, arena tour within, well, they did work really hard, but
they do work hard.
Yeah, they work really hard, but that's not seen as working, I guess. Like, even though you're flying around the world in like 24 hours, stopping everywhere, it's like, oh, well, whatever, you're making money.
It's like, the dancing is a lot of hard work. You have the constant dancing and that choreography. It's a certain type of hard work, but I do think there's like a resentment in the public being like, well, I work hard too. Why are you getting all this attention? Okay, now that it's turned, it's safe. Pardon?
Because they're paying for it. Because it's organized. It's not just like, oh, what is this person doing? Right. It's like a whole infrastructure built around, presenting celebrities and like keeping them relevant because your outlet needs to remain relevant and needs to keep, all of those things. So it's like, yeah.
But when it's time to tear them down, they come. The public comes so hard. I don't know if it's the same public who are the fans or the same ones that are tearing them down. Are the same individuals, do you think? Or is it a different set of individuals that are just more mean-spirited?
It's a good question. I think it really varies. I think overall, it's not fans. But there are some fans who have that weird, jokey, insulting sort of attitude. I've seen that with some like smaller, there was like a whole exchange with this smaller celebrity that I followed, a fan that was being like super rude and just being like, oh no, this is just stan speak. And it's like, no, it's bullying. Like, was just what she said. She's like, it's bullying. You think it isn't because you think you're in the sphere and I'm over here. It's like, we're all on the same platform. Like, this isn't, you're not shouting into the void. You are actually telling me how awful I am. Right. And like, oh, but I'm a fan. No. It's like, But overall, I don't think the fans or stans, like once you lose that affection, like when you become disillusioned, I'm trying to think of myself. Like, I wasn't, going adding people, being like, I hate you. Like, I was struggling in my own little blog corner, kind of just being like, how stupid was I? I was so stupid. I was so stupid. It wasn't really towards, them so much as it was an internal constant.
But some people go out, you know, how they express their hurt. Like some people put it inside and some people project it outside. And it just depends on how people express their hurt, where they're at that time in their life, you know? Yeah. You don't seem like a person that's going to go on the attack and try to make someone feel bad. But there's people out there.
But, you know, sometimes you make people feel bad. I apparently made a lot of people feel bad just being on Tumblr. So, you know.
Oh, I wanted to talk to you about Tumblr, but I want to keep talking about this religion thing. Mm-hmm. I think Tumblr is a completely different conversation.
Oh,
okay. So
we can say that Tumblr has assisted in making things very religious because of the way that like posts, like someone will write like the most intense love post, right, about like love bombing like Britney Spears, let's say, and just being like, she's the greatest person in the entire world, like I would die, I would like put, you know, rose petals, and then they can deactivate, but that post will still be there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so you'll still have that evidence, and it can be found and sort of like absorbed by other people as well.
Yeah, you talk about how people decide they want to be fans of certain people, mm-hmm. that it's not even them, it's like the celebrity calls to them. Mm-hmm. It's like when you hear a philosophy or when I read something or hear something and I'm like, oh my God, a light bulb goes off, mm-hmm. something happens where I'm like, that makes sense. Yep. Like things just kind of fall into place. I'm like, okay, so now I'm going to absorb that idea, absorb that philosophy. And you say that these fans will see a celebrity and there's something about that celebrity that just, there's that aha moment and they say, I'm going to follow this person now.
Yeah.
What is that aha moment?
It's hard to explain. I've sort of tried to. There's a book on Bruce Springsteen fans that covers it really well, and that book really explores. It calls it like fan conversion. It's like it's real. It's a thing where when people try to explain what happened, they're like, I can't. Like you suddenly aren't part of the story because you're just like, well, it happened, and then I felt, and it's like, well, how do I explain? Because you can't really verbalize it. But one of the examples that I can say that I experienced was with the TV show Queer as Folk, the old one, not the reboot, where I just caught like a few minutes on TV of a scene from an episode that isn't even that good now that I've seen the whole show. But there was something about like the acting, I don't know, the lines, something. I was like, oh, I have to watch this entire series now, like right away. Like just like, I got to watch all of it. I got to do it. I got to know what led to the scene. I got to know, even though it wasn't particularly, you know, it wasn't like a wedding or something like that. It was just like, there was just something about it. I was like, I have to go watch all of this.
I'm going to say something crazy. I don't believe it, but I'm going to say it because I'm going to say it.
Okay, let's hear it.
So assuming time, all of time has already happened and we're only experiencing it linearly. You have already watched all of Queer as Folk. And therefore you were reminded to start watching Queer as Folk. So it's kind of a circle already because you have already seen it.
Yeah.
That would make sense. I'm not saying that's what happened, but if we're going by aha moments.
No, I think that's a really good way of looking at it because I've kind of labeled myself reluctantly a hipster just because people are so annoyed that I don't watch trailers and stuff like that. But I've realized as I do research, it's like, oh, that's because those are paratexts set up to set your expectations. Like those are already the product and they're trying to get you to feel a certain way before you go into the actual product. And I'm like, no, I just want to be able to experience it. Like, I don't want to, I'll watch the trailer afterwards to see, did you do it justice? What angle were you taking? But I'm not interested in being, you know, stimulated as like, ooh, let me soon watch this. I'm like, no, either I'm going to watch it or I'm not going to watch it. I don't want to.
That's interesting.
That. So the paratexts, I think, are so relevant. But did you ever like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys or like any of those bands and have like a favorite? Because I know when I had my favorite in Backstreet Boys, it was Brian. I don't know why it was Brian, but it was. It was Brian, but I don't know why. Why was it Brian? Why wasn't it Nick? He was youngest. Like, why wasn't it? I don't know. But that was
a favorite.
That was my favorite.
Well, TLC, Lisa Left Eye Lopes, I always really liked her. But that's because there was something about her that reminded me of myself. And then, of course, she died, and I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm good with all this.
Remember? Yeah. No,
I can't be emotionally attached to any of this stuff anymore, because then my favorite is just gonna die. So.
Yeah, no, it's pretty terrible. That's how I left My Chemical Romance fandom, because my favorite was the drummer, and he wasn't kicked out, but he parted ways with them after like the third album or something. And that was so shattering to me, because I was like, what? But you guys are best friends. You're basically brothers. Like, what is happening? What is happening? You know, what happened to the documentary when you're like, thank God for Bob? And it's like, what happened? You don't thank God for Bob anymore. What? You know, and suddenly it's like, oh, my illusion wasn't real. So.
Well, maybe it's, well, I'll ask you this. I'll ask you to explain this. Can you explain to the audience what parasocial relationships are? This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, parasocial relationships are essentially one-sided relationships with, it doesn't even have to be a person, really, because you could have a character online that is online. I feel like brands are doing this nowadays. Brands are becoming humanized in a way where they'll joke online and people are like, I love how Wendy's jokes. And it's like, Wendy's is a fast food chain. Like, you realize that the corporate entity is not the one doing all of this, but you'll have a relationship because you'll start to, like, as long as you interact with someone positively, you'll start to form those emotional connections. And it's basically that connection you feel towards them. And it can be, it's like inevitable that it will happen. It's not inherently bad. It becomes bad when you start to really, like, when you start to imagine that it's more than that. And when you start to really think that you're right, you actually see what's really there, you know?
Or you try to control them in some way, or exert control over this person.
Yeah. But you don't even have to do that, because a lot of them will have their own narratives going on in their heads without even necessarily bothering the actual celebrity. But they've constructed a whole alternative world where their version of this person is the real version.
Daydreaming.
Yeah, but they're not daydreaming. They think this is the real thing. And that's something that was described by the Michael Jackson fans in the book as well, is like, he would ask them about, like, well, you know, they're like, he's the same Michael he's always been. And it's like, well, you know, he's had all these surgeries and all of this. And they're like, people make such a big deal of that. He's the same little boy as always. We know. And as soon as someone says, no, you don't actually know, that just reinforces the feeling of like, you don't know how much I know, right? And it's fundamentally a sort of, the difference I feel like is when you have a parasocial relationship with like a celebrity or someone, you're taking an observer role. And it's not something you would necessarily do with a friend of yours or you know, anyone else. Like, you don't sit around and say like, oh, my mom, I have to be in touch with every single thing she does all the time. I need to know who she talks to. What does she like? What does she eat? Like, you know, it's like enough to know that you love them and they're out there and you'll talk to them. Like,
and they're safe. That's all you care about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So these parasocial relationships, do people have them with Jesus? Because I know this is a ridiculous question, but people have been getting on my case for misinterpreting a line in the Bible. And I was just like, well, that's how I interpreted it. I think we all have the right to interpret it that way. But they've been saying, oh, you've interpreted it wrong. You were wrong to do that. And I'm thinking, well, that only makes sense if you think you have some ownership over this religion. So is it similar to how people obsess about, you know, Jesus or whatever?
I think it's similar, but I think the fundamental thing with that is when you have when you think that you know that felt knowledge, and it's like once you feel it, you know what it means, because it's kind of impossible to explain. It's like a deja vu. Like, how do you explain the feeling of deja vu? It's like you have it and you're like, oh, that's what it is. So like when you feel something so profoundly, it's like, my mother is my mother. I just know it, you know? And if they know the Bible is true in the way that they know the Bible is true, and you're saying something else, then it's like, I know inside that it's not like that. And I feel like that's one of the big problems these days, where it's like, oh, what was it? It was someone who said like, oh, we should have never gone into subjective facts and stuff like that. And it's like, well, the problem is a lot of subjective facts are believed to be real by people who feel that they are, like, these are real things. And that's also how you can meet people who are incredibly devout and might not even have read, you know, all of the Bible. Or
it's long. There's so much in there. It's like, come on. And then the Catholic Bible is even longer. You can't.
Yeah.
I don't believe anyone who says they've read the whole thing. I think they've read it and fallen asleep on it.
Well, I haven't tried, so I can't really speak on that. But yeah, like and I think that's also how people can be contradictory, right? Where they'll be like, oh, well, this is wrong according to the Bible. Meanwhile, they're wearing, like, what is it? One of those things where it's like you blend the fabrics.
Can't blend the Deuteronomy.
Yeah,
there's a lot in that book.
Well, this doesn't count, but that really counts because of what they think, like, right? Because of how they've internalized it. And
well,
I feel like that's a lot. Yeah.
They put the emphasis where the emphasis needs to be. Now, and then this goes off, now factions form. Now, this is what matters in the Bible, and this is not what matters. And you actually brought this up. Where? I'm actually flipping through your paper right now so people can see. That factions form in fandom? So what is that, like Shiites versus Sunnis, but of One Direction fandom?
Yeah, so in One Direction fandom, you would have, for example, like 5 members. So then you have people who are intensely defensive of each. And then you have people who are like, this group of 5 is my ultimate group. And then Zayn leaves. And then you have people who are like, this 4 is what I believe in, and he can go rot, basically. So the people who like all 5 are like, why are you so mean? Like, no, we believe in the power of 5 or whatever. And then it'll go on like that, right? Or they'll form some sort of attachment to 2 of them as like their friendship, or because they believe that they're together, and that to them is the most important thing, and they will relate everything back to them.
And the groups form. Now there's a group there's sub fandoms. This is called sub fandoms now, but it's factions. It
is because of the way that they. Like, you don't necessarily notice it until you start seeing all the differing opinions. So it's kind of a thing where you enter, when you join a fandom and you're just like having fun, and then something happens, and then you're like, oh, wait, there's like capital O opinions here and then you have to figure out where you are, and like, am I in the right, do I disagree with them? What is going on? Like, it can be, I'm trying to think of like something wild that people would do. Like, for example, there are Taylor Swift fans who still recognize that she's, you know, a businesswoman who uses PR and is very, you know, marketing
savvy. She's savvy.
Yeah. And then you have the ones that think that she, you know, she's the purest of the pure, you know, she's so innocent and good-hearted. And I remember this when the Kanye tape came out or whatever, like when he was like, here's the actual phone conversation I had with her. What these fans were saying, like, they hired a voice actor because that's like, she would never, like, that's not her. It's not her. And you could never convince them that it's actually her. She could tell them it's me, and they'd be like, well, you have to say that because the narrative is that you said it, but we know that you didn't, and we believe in the real you. And then you realize, oh, okay, so they're over there. Where am I? Like, do I fit in with these crazies? And then you accidentally end up with some other crazy And I think with One Direction, it just became much more noticeable because of the split. And suddenly certain groups were very aggressive, which, made things difficult.
Did they go at each other, or did they just say, okay, well, you believe this, we believe this, we're going to have different chat rooms or different? No, they went at each other?
Well, yeah, the Harry fans did. Yeah. The Harry fans were always very like, they're like, oh, I'm so glad I never have to see those other people again. And it's like, what? Didn't you just say you were a fan of the band? Like, what happened? And very much like, so they would go online and do like a review on like Rate My Music and be like 5 stars for this one. And then they'd go find all the other guys and be like 1 star, just to like, and it's funny because you can click on it and see everything else they've rated. So then you see like, oh, how funny. These are the only albums you've magically rated in this way.
Yeah.
And they'll try to organize to vote against each other. And with One Direction, they would always pit them all against each other in like Billboard Fan Army. What is the best way to get engagement? Just have One Direction, or have all 5 of them just in there loose, so that the fans have to fight against each other? That gives way more engagement. So they love to pit them against each other, like the media in general.
Engagement is conflict. Conflict drives the story. So I can't complain about conflict, but that's what it means. When they say engagement, you're talking about taking this fan's time from their lives, from them developing a career, a family, et cetera, and putting it towards this icon, this golden calf that is not really going to help them further their lives at all.
And that's, I think, where I realized how little, because I mentioned this in the Astroturfing piece, that it's like, and a lot of the quotes are about empowerment, right? They're like, we want them to feel empowered. It's like, but you don't actually want them to have power. You just want them to feel like they have power. And when you are a fan of someone who isn't receiving that, then you're like, oh my God, we actually can't do anything. Because you can request the song at radio. But then if the radio is like, well, we never received it, like we don't have it, then what do you do as a fan? You can't do anything. Like at what point, like you can't actually, like one of the things we were relegated to do was like voting for awards. And it's like nothing. Like, what does it mean? Nothing. It doesn't do anything in the grand scheme of things.
You give energy to the system. You're putting energy in the system. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's taking away from your own system, because it's taking away from your life. And I think this is the greatest disservice. Now they're giving you the music or whatever the art is. They are giving you that. But however, I mean, if you're not spending your Friday nights with your friends and family, it's taking away from your real life. This is where I think they're being immoral.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because that is another way that I feel like fandom is like religion, in that it takes the priority once it gets to that stage. Not all fans are like that. It has to do with levels, obviously. But there really is, they'll take vacation days to go, this was about the Winona Ryder trial, I believe, back in when she was shoplifting.
That was a long time ago. I don't even remember.
I'm like,
what year.
I want to say it was the 90s, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Like, it was definitely in the 2000s. But that was the thing where fans had been like, oh, I took vacation to come here. And it's like, my family's meeting for Thanksgiving, but like, here I am with my family, right? My family of fans.
That's too much. Now, I get if you see a celebrity and there's something about that celebrity that you aspire to be like people follow fitness influencers, or they follow writers or whatever, and they say, okay, I want to be more like this person, so I'll study this person. And okay, that's helping you. Just in the same way that if someone finds a religion and that religion is teaching them lessons, I'm like, okay, that's helping you, it's not hurting you. I think the line is when it starts to take away from your real relationships with your family and your partner and your friends and your school grades as well.
Yeah. And you don't even think about it. I think you're just so caught up in like, it's very, it's just like a feeling that
passion
that is driving you. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, it is. It's like they're under a virus.
Yeah.
They're under a spell. It's something, because when it breaks, it does break. And when it breaks, for most people, you're like, what did I spend all this time on? Like a crush or whatever. And then you, as soon as you're over your crush, you look at your crush and you're like, what? This person isn't even that attractive, or whatever's in your head, but something has happened. I don't know if someone blew some powder in your face at some point, but once that clears, you're like, what did I do? I spent how much money following this person across the country? What?
Yeah.
A madness. The madness is the same. And then it breaks. And then you're back in the real world, the objective reality, where this person doesn't know who you are or whatever. And you're just like,
that's always been something that I'm like, this is so weird, is because I'm listening to old love lines, and then they'll have guests and people will call in. And the amount of times that someone calls in for the band and is like, do you remember me? And it's like, no, why would they remember you? Like, they meet like at least 100 people every day. That's like, it's not even a slight towards you. It's like, how could they possibly, save all of that in their brains? Like, they can't. Like, that's not human. But somehow they're like expecting that you had a special, connection somehow. It's like fans who send flowers and gifts to these celebrities. It's like, these people are rich. They don't need you to bring them an Adidas sweatshirt, right? But it feels different that you bought it for them, and it's like, okay, I've never done that. I was never one to like buy gifts.
FYI, half the time that doesn't get to the person. Most of the time it doesn't get to the person. My friend used to have to go through the gifts that was sent on this particular show. I'm not going to name names, but he was like, we were instructed, never give this to the person, because then the fan would come and say, I gave you this. Why won't you answer my letter? Why don't you answer my call or whatever? And the celebrity can rightfully say, I never got that. That just went to various PAs and we're not dealing with it. Because it's homemade things. It's in various things. It's like, put this energy toward a family member, because they don't even want the celebrity to get this because it's too complicated.
Yeah, there was a big thing. Well, a big thing. There was like a whole Twitter thread on that just recently, where it was like some fan who had retweeted, like, I guess someone who was backstage at a Harry show and was like, oh my God, he sent me flowers. That's so nice. And this fan was like, that's the same brand that I sent. And was like, wait. And then went looking through things. I'm like, no, that's, and then she's like, I sent those flowers, but to him, not to, they got and then she's just like, what is happening? And just kind of being like, what is going on? But it's like, yeah, I mean, you can't bring, how many flowers are you going to end up with? If you'll need a truck to take them somewhere.
Yeah. And with skaters, they throw them on the ice and nobody expects you to get the bear on you. They throw Pooh Bears on the ice for him. Yeah. And nobody's like, oh, did you get my specific Pooh Bear? It's like, no, you got 1,000 Pooh Bears on the ice. He picks up one, waves to the fans to say, I appreciate, and then walks off. And then that's the extent of the relationship.
God, I would feel like it would be such a waste. I would somehow try to be like, can we collect them and donate them to like a children's charity or something?
I think they do. Yeah.
Okay, God, I hope so. Because it's like, oh my God, the amount of things that, could be useful to someone or mean something to people who don't have it. It's like,
just bring it to the hospital. Yeah. There's no way. There's no, it's like throwing rose petals at someone's feet. If they're at a monk's feet, you're not going to say, did you see the rose petal I threw at your foot? It's like, no, there were general rose petals and they stepped on them and moved on with their day. And they don't remember a specific one, which is why it's wrong for the fans to get so attached and to give expecting to receive something, because you don't receive, you give to show appreciation for the program or for the song or whatever. So that's something that maybe people need to learn, to give, to show appreciation.
I wish, I don't know if I know anyone who would give gifts, because then I would try to sort of figure out like, what is the mentality behind it? Because like you say, it's like, is it, because you're inadvertently going to expect something. Like, you might not verbalize it, but you're going to feel some sort of like, special connection. I feel like it's like, oh, I gave them this, and they can imagine them like taking it and be like, oh, it's probably,
they probably do. They probably like hold on to the flowers and say, somebody gave me flowers, but they're not going to know the name. They're not going to remember the name is Maria something, and then 3 years later remember that same Maria. They're just going to know somebody loved me enough to give me flowers.
Yeah,
which is important too. But the fans need to be okay with that being the extent of it.
Yeah, you do. It's not. I mean, it's. I wonder if there's sort of a. I wonder if that kind of stuff too, as well, adds up to when the fever breaks, if it does, that, all that energy that you put in, like, sort of sours, because it's still out, like, it's out there, and then it becomes, something bitter that's coming towards you, and you're like, oh my God, I wasted all of this time on this, and I spent all this money, and
it depends what they got, It really depends what they got. If they got the album that brought them through the summer, that, really helped them get through grad school, I feel they've gotten enough where it shouldn't sour. But if they expect too much, then that's the problem. And I think this might have to do with certain personality types don't understand reciprocity and levels of reciprocity and so forth.
Yeah. But it's also interesting because something that I've seen, and this happened a lot with One Direction fandom, is when people were upset on Tumblr, the responses would often be like, stop acting like they owe you anything. Like, they don't owe you anything. Like, stop being so entitled. So somehow the entitlement is being fostered, but as soon as someone speaks up, it's like, you gotta, like, you're being too obvious. Like, you're making us look bad. You're making it look like we're all demanding something. You should just, like, shut up and take it, because don't be difficult. Don't be entitled,
Well, that's something we all have to learn. We all have to learn how to love people as they are, not as we want them to be. And that's something, a lot of us, we never, ever learn that lesson, to love people for their flaws, that this is a human being going through stuff too. And you can't expect that. Okay, so let's say Britney Spears has 1 billion fans. If only 10% of people are ever enlightened enough to learn that lesson, okay, I'm sorry, Britney, but 900 million are now mad at you because you let them down.
Yeah.
It's just a numbers game at that point.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
And for whatever reason, it can be the smallest things. Like, fandom will go into meltdown over, like, a tweet. And it's like, okay, this might be part of the news cycle for one day, but, like, no one is going to remember this in a week. No one, except for you. You're going to be sitting there being like, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe this happened. And just, like, shaking with anger. And I've been there. I've been, like, so angry, and you're like, oh my God, over nothing. You're just like, I can't believe. I mean, that's part of it. Once you realize how intensely you're caught up in it, it becomes like, oh God. Yeah. Like,
is this overlap with OCD at all?
That's a good question. I don't think so. Because OCD is a lot more about order, right?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe not OCD. Fixation.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, fixation. People fixate on a person, but it is obsessive. There's something incredibly obsessive about it. It does seem like not you, but these people are in 8th grade and they got a crush on a person. That sort of really immature emotion.
There's a fancy academic word for that. It's limerence.
Limerence.
Limerence is unrequited crushes, essentially, like that fixation you have, and how like, you might have, like, a super big crush on someone, but at the same time you're like, you can't imagine talking to them. Like, you're like, that feels like completely unthinkable, because you just can't collide with them in reality, because you only have that feeling of, like, overwhelming, like, oh my God, I really like them. And that's definitely something I've had when you're like, oh my God, yeah, I know what that feeling is. It's that unrequited crush where you're just like, are they online? Like, or did they post something? Oh no. Okay. Wonder what they're doing now. Like, early Facebook days when all of the activities you did were posted, and you're like, oh, okay. And you're just, like, obsessing, and yeah, it's a real thing. that grown-ups experience too. Yeah, definitely more common among the youth.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, at what age do you just leave that all behind?
Well, I don't know that everyone can leave it behind. It probably has to do a lot with your attachment styles. That's something I'm getting into now with like, how some people, like you're sort of, I don't want to say doomed because that has a sort of fatalism to it, but you sort of repeat your patterns, right? Without even being conscious of it. Like you're attracted to a particular type of person, and then you don't realize that they're actually like the other person you were attracted to because of different people. But there's whatever it is. Like I always had an issue with unavailable people, and it's like you wouldn't even have to know that they're unavailable, but then you find out because there must be something about the like that vibe that's just like, oh, that's so appealing. What's going on over there? It's like, no, they're unavailable. That's what's so mysterious and appealing. But,
is that something we can work through? Because
yes,
I don't want to go into details, but like we all know that friend who's always attracted to the crazy person that will ruin their lives. And it's a different girlfriend or it's a different boyfriend, but it's like, this person's going to ruin your life too, just like the last one did and the one before that. Is there any way we can break them out of that?
Well, I'm not a professional, but I can repeat the Dr. Drew advice, which is that therapy is needed, but it can definitely be fixed because according to him, it's about rewiring the connections in your brain and having that relationship with someone who can help you go through everything. And a therapist is that constant relationship, right? And it's a very grounded, structured relationship with boundaries. So it's never like a friend where it's like, it's a give and take and you sort of have to consider like, that's just life, right? You're not going to go tell someone the worst news ever if they're in a good mood or if they're upset about something else. Like you're always, thinking about where you are. But the therapist is like supposed to build a connection with you where you can sort of get all of that out and sort of like rewire your systems. And so if you notice,
go on.
Oh, one of the most interesting pieces of advice and the least followable, I think, is like if you notice that you're always drawn to chaotic people because it feels exciting, you get that excitement where you're like, I'm really excited about this person, then you should always be going with someone that you're not excited about. Like if you start to feel like someone is boring, it's like, they're probably good for you. Not in general, but if you find yourself constantly excited by the wrong people, then the fact that you're feeling bored is probably actually a good thing. And it might just be you reacting to like, oh God, it's getting too stable. Like I feel like we all self-sabotage so much without even, being aware of it.
So this is why I am all about fitness and exercise. People think I'm a meathead, not on this channel, but like in real life, people think I'm a total meathead, but I'm like, there's rules to this. You work out, you get results. It's fine. You get all your energy out, you dance class, gym, whatever you're going to do. And then that way you can come and just be fine with having a boring life. And then you don't attach things to people. You don't expect them to thrill you. You thrill yourself. You get that out of the way. And then you can just deal with people as they are. I really think go run it, go walk it off.
No, I think that's really good. And I find walking off or like, going for a bike ride is so calming. But just watch out so you don't end up in a fitness cult because those do exist as well. There's a lot of like karate and yoga cults, and there's a running cult in Colorado, I think.
And they just get together and they run until their feet are bleeding and their ankles are broken. Yeah,
like apparently it's like ultra running, and there's people that work at a particular shoe store in Colorado, and they were like, oh yeah, they've come in here, and it's like, right away what group they're in, and they don't think about it. They're like, yeah, I'm following this guy who is a genius. It's like, no, you've gone ensnared is what.
Oh, it can turn. Eteri Tuberitsi, who is the best Russian coach, I think she's going to defect here, but she has a harem, not a harem, I don't want to call it a harem. She has a stable of girls who she's starving and they compete with each other. And they are the most beautiful things ever. They're the most beautiful skaters in the whole world ever. And then at 17, their bones break and all these other things, and they just go downhill. It's like when Bella Caroli, if the USA Gymnastics, you remember that, when he had his stable of girls? And it was like, oh my God, you're making the best athlete after the best athlete after the best athlete. And then you look at, well, what is the cost for that? Now, if you're not at the Olympics, if he wasn't going to the Olympics and winning Olympic gold medals, Bella Caroli is the former coach of the U.S. Gymnastics. He came from Romania, I believe, just to explain to the people. He came from Romania, and when he came to the United States, the U.S. Gymnastics team went to the top. But if he weren't winning all these Olympic gold medals, you would say this man's running a cult. What he does to these girls and the training methods and the sacrifice they have to make for the sport, for the perfect. It's not even a score. Well, it is a score when you're competitive, but it is just that moment of visual perfection. It's a transcendent moment. When you see someone do a sports thing, like, I don't think it was from half court, but you remember when Jordan shot that, dunked from, I think it was the free throw line? It's an iconic moment.
I can picture it. I've seen what I call football goals.
Is that soccer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I've seen some pretty insane ones there, so I can equivalent.
One time, Jordan, I forget what championship, he dunked from the throw line, and he basically was like stepping on air. And it's like, it's a transcendent moment. Like, and you're watching it, you're like, how can a human do this? And so I feel maybe for this runner's call, and certainly for the skaters and the gymnasts, is like, you're working so hard, you sacrifice so much for just this half a second where everybody who watches, whether they're familiar with the sport or not, can say, I saw something superhuman happen. And so it's somehow worth it.
I think you're right. And it's sort of, I'm the worst with like tangents, but that just reminds me of, there's a movie called The Crash Reel, and that's about a snowboarder, and it covers a lot of the snow sports, regulations, words for those things, right? The way that the rules and stuff like that, and how, because the sport has advanced so much and people have become so good at doing tricks and going high and stuff like that, the equipment that they have isn't like, they're jumping so high that their helmets don't actually matter. Like, it doesn't matter. If you fall, you're dead. Like, it doesn't matter that you're wearing a helmet, because your helmet isn't cut out for X height. And who's fixing that? No one. Because it's just about getting better and better and better. Meanwhile, nothing else is like changing. And that apparently is why there's like a lot of deaths and injuries in those sports, like pipe sports and stuff like that.
Those people are crazy. Those people are insane.
And they don't have the equipment. Like, they don't have equipment good enough. And that movie is about a guy who he was supposed to go to the Olympics in Vancouver, and he was training, and he got a traumatic brain injury. So done with that, into the hospital. And it's like talking to a lot of other people, and he still was like, I really want to snowboard again. And they're like, if you hit your head again, like, you're not going to be a vegetable, but you're going to be like a walking vegetable. Like, you're not going to have those things. And yet he has the drive to do it. And they meet with someone who had 2 traumatic brain injuries, and you could tell that he was like not all there.
Those football players.
Yeah.
These football players.
That devotion that they're like, but I want to do it. Or like wrestling. I feel like that is like an insane sport. UFC, like, oh my God.
It's the love. It's I have to sacrifice my body. Maybe it's for the attention. Maybe it's not for a transcendent moment. It's probably different depending on what athletes.
I feel like Jackass is for attention. I don't know about the other ones.
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know, actually.
Some people are different. Like some people can control their mind so much that they know, I'm doing this for self-interest. I'm doing this for attention, but I'm going to perform in the same way, the same quality as someone who lives for this, like in a spiritual way. And this is it's different types of people, it's different makes of human and what they do.
Yeah.
I saw something really interesting, not to abruptly change the subject like this, but I saw something interesting and I have to talk to you about it.
Okay.
Disney adults.
Mm-hmm. I have a piece on Disney.
Okay, I didn't read it.
No,
I didn't read it. I feel bad.
Why?
Because I was going over this recently and I saw that this couple who they didn't get catering for their wedding. And instead they got a picture with Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse, which literally, how dare you? Their parents gave them money to get catering because that's what you do at a wedding, or you don't invite people. That's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And instead of getting catering and feeding their guests, they got a picture with Minnie and Mickey Mouse.
Were they the real ones or just people dressed up in those suits? Do you know what I mean? Like, were they like official Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse from official. Disney? Yeah, okay. It wasn't just like a someone who lives at home is like, here's my Mickey outfit.
They should have done that.
An official. There's definitely,
get the outfit, get Uncle Harry to put it on, and then at the very least you have to bring a taco truck to the wedding. You have to give people something. So like, there's vending machines. A taco truck.
Amazing. Wow. There's some amazing food trucks out there. So yeah, I'm like, oh. Yeah.
I'm getting a food truck for my wedding. It's a good food truck and they're going to be ready with fresh food because sometimes you cater and then the food sits there for 5-6 hours, reheated 2-3 times. What are we talking about? Food truck, fresh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Disney adult.
Yeah, Disney is I mean, it's a bold claim for me to be like, it's a cult, but it also like definitely has those qualities where, so that Disney has had planned communities, like they've built cities.
I've heard about these.
Yeah.
They make me deeply uncomfortable.
Oh, it's getting worse because like they're new ones. They're specifically saying like, so I did a lot of research on this because it's crazy. And it was in the news recently where they're like, when they were discussing Disney's special rights in Florida, which is that they have a government, like they have, governance. And I think most people didn't know that until it started popping up in the news where it's like, wait, what? That they legitimately just have their own government for their land because it's easier. And they're
like, it's like Vatican City. Yeah.
And Walt was like, I don't want to have to deal with these papers and having to apply for things. Like we should have our own thing that we set their own rules and we do it for ourselves. So there's already that. And then
which I respect because if you ever have to build a deck in a town that has too many regulations, okay, so for good reason, Walt has his own government. Okay. No.
Yeah. And then they built, so the first town that they built is called Celebration. It's in Florida. It's still there. It is no longer affiliated with Disney, which is really interesting to read the stories about how that sort of slowly happened and how that city was built and the cost, and people had to participate in a lottery to even, like you entered a lottery for the houses because that's how high the demand was. And they could raise, like they had budget houses, but even those, like the prices increased because there were so many people that wanted them. And then they had their own school, which turned out to be a complete disaster. And there was like, God, there were so many things, but just the way that everything was built and it looked so nice. But like, if you looked closer, it was like you would see a fence that looks like a fence. But if you look closer, you're like, oh, this is plastic. It's been painted to look like a fence, right? Or like a wooden thing. And it's like, oh no, this is just like, it's all
set decoration. That's set decoration.
Yeah. And what one of the problems turned out to be there was that at Disneyland or Disney World, they've built it so that you never have to see the garbage man, taking the garbage. Like they have intricate systems of tunnels so that you never have to see like a truck delivery, because that sort of breaks the illusion. And you can they just drag this garbage bin out and put that one in there, and then you don't even have to see anything because then they go into like the downstairs. But this city wasn't organized like that, obviously, because it's an actual city. And that sort of apparently created like a sort of problem, but they were like, oh, well, it's not actually, And then around the first Christmas, they had speakers, or they had to stop this because people were going insane, but they actually had Christmas music blaring in the streets, like 24/7, like from the streets, just to be like, it's a jolly time. And it's like, no, people are gonna go insane, because it's like, we don't want to listen to this. So their new city that they build, that they're working on, which is called Story Living, is all about, if you want, you want to make fandom a bigger part of your life, you want to have special events, Disney special events. And also the city will be staffed by Disney staff or cast members. Sorry, that's what they call them, cast members. So it is going to be like a managed, like I'm picturing it like, the old people homes that are just like fully managed, except on a city scale is what I'm picturing, and with fans.
See, here's my thing, and I really don't want to judge, but I'm also looking at this like, is there something wrong with an adult, let's say 30 years old, prime of their life, unable to look at the nastier side of life? That, okay, the girl at the checkout counter is not always going to be nice to you. These things that just, life isn't always perfect. You're going to have to see the trash man. There might be a smell here or there. You might get a splinter on the fence. Is there something wrong with a group of people so unable to deal with the downside of life? Fragile. Are they too fragile? And is that something we should be concerned about?
I don't know. I think we should be concerned about it because that's what's being encouraged. I mean, especially Disney is very much like everything has to be perfect all the time. And that is their mission, right? It has to be like fully, completely perfect, because that's what they're trying to push. So the more companies are pushing that, the more you get used to it. And then you're sort of like, I'm paying for this service. And it's like, hey, you spent $10 on a movie ticket. Like, calm down. Like, that doesn't give you, which I've actually experienced that when I've worked at film festivals, and people would call and complain and be like, my daughter keeps your festival running every year. And it's like, because she has one pass, like the cheapest pass available, she's keeping the festival running. Okay.
And what would their complaint be? That she doesn't get enough respect at the festival?
Oh, it's like they wanted a ticket for this. Oh, people get so entitled at festivals. Oh my God. I've been called a Nazi for not, it's like, it's insane. And another one was like, this is like living in Mao's China. And I'm like, what is even happening? Like, because the movie's sold out and I'm not selling you an extra ticket just in case you get in. Like, what is even happening? But that guy was so funny because like the screening was sold out. And it's like, why can't you just give me a ticket? Because it's sold out. But we're going to start a line for in case there's empty seats. So he did get to go in after all. And then he was just like, oh my God, thank you so much. And I'm like, you literally told me like 5 minutes ago that I was, a communist, tyrant ruling over the festival. And now you're like, oh my God, thank you.
I think those people we need to send to a fascist or communist state, like a real one, just even for a week, so they could see, okay, this is how other people live. Or even, it doesn't even have to be a state. It doesn't have to be a different country. You could just send them to lead a regular person's life for a week, and you could see.
Oh my God.
They could work retail for 1 week, and they could be like, okay, oh wow, this is what the world is. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, it is.
That's like, do people tell these people no, is what I'm thinking. Like, do they get told no?
They're not used to it. A lot of times it is in just people with like industry passes, because they're used to, I think, everyone acquiescing. But when you're at a film festival, there's thousands of people with industry passes. Like, you're just one of, like, why would I prioritize you over the ones that actually got their tickets?
Yeah.
It's like, no, sorry. And then they can get as angry as they want. Like, that's not even, yeah, it's not. I mean, we had really good supervisors basically that were like, oh, how are you guys doing? And like, oh, well, these people yelled at us, and it's like, well, you should have just told them like, we don't tolerate that here at Hunt, so like, go away. And it's like, well, I don't know. We were just like, okay, bye.
So these are Hollywood big shots who are yelling at you, or these
not
regular
even big
people?
shots, not even big shots, but like distributors, producers, publicists. Oh no, wait, yeah, publicists are often a disaster to deal with in my experience.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see how they might be.
Yeah. And like everyone who's part of the film crew gets an industry pass. So like, yeah, there could be like 3 producers and like one line producer that got to attend because they were nearby and all of that stuff. So there's like, I feel like once they have that industry pass, they're like, oh my God, it's so fancy.
I know, but
it's fancy and it's important. It's like, it's just so we can differentiate between
who paid and who didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Who's a guest and who's, a customer. Yeah.
Yeah. I am a little concerned about Disney replacing culture. That bothers me.
It's happening. Like the big backlash that they received recently was very surprising to me. But I think it's still going to go ahead because the people who are dedicated are dedicated. And there's also the Disneyland social clubs.
There's like book clubs.
So I might be misremembering like the actual thing, but they are called social clubs. And these are people who, I don't know how they afford this, but they basically hang out in groups and they're like, we love the parks. So they go to the parks and they all have jean jackets and they're like, there's badges that are saying like, we're this group. Nice. We're the pirates, whatever, because we love the pirate ride the most. And they just wander around and do their thing and are like, hello, everyone. Yeah, we love Disney. We're here to represent Disney. They don't get paid. Like they pay to go in. Like
they pay to go in.
They pay to go in and there's fights among them. And like, you have to sort of apply. Oh my God. Like it's this whole structure. And Disney's just like, well, sure, go have fun. Do your thing over there.
I mean, if they're having fun, and look, I'm not going to turn down.
Anything bad. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to offer a bedazzled jacket, like that's kind of fun. Like you and your friends go together, you wear the same thing. You're like, we're this crowd, and you're 13, 14.
Yeah. Oh, these are grown-ups though.
Oh, these are grown people? Like 25 and older?
Yes. With families.
Oh, with family.
Yeah.
Could you imagine your dad's in the pirate gang at Disney? I would not talk to him in the park the whole time. I'd be like, Dad, don't.
I know.
Do not talk to me until we leave.
I don't know them. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. No, like grown-ups. And it's just like, oh my God. Yeah. They have so many. And I feel like what happened was because it was a very underground thing, like people who people who went to the parks would start noticing like there's groups of people in jean jacket, like in cut off jean vests. So like there has to be something, like why are they all hanging out in groups? And sort of like that knowledge sort of built from there. And some of them are like tattooed, like super heavily tattooed. Like it looks like they would belong in a motorcycle gang, but they're actually part of a Disney social club because they're just like,
I mean, sometimes you got to replace one addiction with the other, one gang with the other. Yeah. So I'm not going to hate on it. Like if they're like, I'm not going back to prison, I'm going to join these pirates and go to Disney. I'm like, I respect your decision, sir. It is a cope. I'm not against copes.
No, we all have to have some sort of cope. Like it's, yeah. That's that just reminds me of, there is a fan group, the Juggalos.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
Yeah. So I was reading up on them again and I didn't realize that they had been labeled as like a gang or like a hate group or something like that, because there were some people who apparently were doing illegal things. And then because of that, it was like, oh, the Juggalos are all a gang. And there's been like legal battles over it. And I'm just like, wow, this is like a whole mess that I didn't even see back then. that
And
will require a lot more research. But
yeah, I remember that. I remember they went away. It used to be like a more important thing
because of that.
It was Insane Clown Posse, right?
Yeah.
Insane Clown Posse.
And the Fago. Yeah.
Oh
and
God.
the makeup. And the Juggle makeup. Yeah. That's like an intense one. But I feel like that's what's happening is these intense attachments are increasing and growing. Yeah.
With these parasocial relationships. Now, here's my thing is I have parasocial relationships with people online, not as a creator, but as a content absorber. I use their content. Like I follow these dance fitness instructors. I follow these fitness instructors. Some other people, I just like, they bring the news and I listen to them every night. So I feel I have some sort of they're in my mind. I'm not in theirs. Let's just say that way. And I feel that these people are actually contributing to my life. Mr. Helio Feria, he's a dance instructor. I've gotten to the point where I'm going to give you money. Like you make my life that much better. I'm just going to give you money. You don't owe me anything.
Yeah.
I just want to do your dance workouts. Same thing with Sydney Cummings, who's about to have a baby. Doesn't know who I am, but I'm like, you know what? I hope you have a very nice birth, Sydney. And I'm over here like, because I've seen her. I saw her every single day for months at a time when I was doing her workouts religiously.
Yeah.
And so it can be a good thing. It can contribute to people's lives.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's like listening to podcasts, like you'll learn things. And I mean, even if it was, I think part of what I try to remind myself is that we humans be dumb. So when there was like the whole thing of like, oh, this person was convinced that this AI was sentient. It's like, yeah, because humans will form attachments to anything. Like you're talking to a robot, but you've now instilled all of this stuff onto it because that's just how humans work and how we interact with, pets. At least, I have conversations with my little guys and go like, yes, we're having a thing. And it's like, well, not really, technically speaking, but hopefully there's some sort of understanding going on because we just attach so much personality and humanity, I feel like, onto so much stuff.
And it's got to be something with the people we choose too. Like we must choose people who are like us in some way. So we are projecting ourselves on to somebody who's already a little bit like us or reminds us of ourselves. Because are we going to choose? Like I'm not going to follow some Armenian pop star just on random, because I don't speak the language. I don't know the music. I have nothing, and there's nothing wrong with that person. If you're Armenian and you speak the language and you follow that person, like I get it. But I'm going to probably follow someone who looks more like me, who sings about the things that interest me, who lives a lifestyle that I want. So there's got to be something, a level of narcissism or like attracts like in it in some way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't done enough reading on that to really, it sounds, intuitively like that makes sense for sure. Or in like, even just like, yeah, doing things that you would like to do or handle things in a certain way. Yeah. Yeah. Like sassy. I don't like the word sassy, but like, yeah, if you have like someone who's like deadpan in interviews or something or sarcastic and it's like, oh yeah, I love that type of humor because that's my type of humor. And you sort of end up, and then you meet someone who's like, I thought they were stuck up. And you're like, what? What do you mean? How dare you?
Well, people probably call this person stuck up behind their back and they don't know it, but it's okay because we all get to have someone we like, Yeah. I think a lot of influencers are like the avatars we wish we could be. And it's like, oh, that's the avatar I would choose. Okay, that's why I like them. Maybe. I have no idea. I don't even know how you would test this.
That is so interesting, though, that you're saying like as avatars, because that would also explain how like there can be a wave of like, how dare you, right? Like it's, I don't know what it could be. It's oh yeah, there's a beauty influencer who now is like, actually, I love Kylie's brand or whatever. and people watch me like, what, you've always been against all of this PR things, and now you're like worshiping this, like, what is going on? What happened to you? You know, that could be why as well, that there was that backlash, because it's like, you're supposed to be representative of me, and now you're doing something that I'm like, what the F are you doing? I don't approve.
Yeah.
Don't approve. Yeah. But you can never please everyone. So then, it's a whole separate.
Is it like when LeBron went to the Lakers and they were like, what are you talking about? You represent Ohio, Akron. You represent Ohio. You know, how can you switch teams?
Yeah.
Like, how can you do it?
This is definitely why I could never be like a sports fan in that way. Because I don't understand how they deal with like you're a fan of a team, but the team is never static. Like it always, well, not always changing, but it changes very often. And there's no actual, like, it's a job for these people, you know?
Yeah.
They're going to go to Cleveland if they get bought by Cleveland or whatever.
I think it gives them more money on the contract if they trade. But yeah, I mean, look, I was a Patriots fan my whole life when they were winning and they were losing, because it's the home team. Mm-hmm. I'm usually a home team person. But as far as individual athletes go, then it's separate. But this is a distinction that most people, I don't know if they can't make or they won't make or whatever. Who has the stand-up? You're actually rooting for the jersey. You're not rooting for the player. You're rooting for the jersey. I think it's a Seinfeld stand-up.
Oh, maybe.
I don't quote me on that. I don't really remember.
I mean, that does remind me that I haven't rewatched Seinfeld in a really long time, so that's on my list for sure. But yeah, that's because, like, yeah, I can get caught up in like the national teams when there's cup, like World Cups and stuff like that. Because yeah, somehow it's like, oh my God, we did it. Yeah, I totally contributed to our team winning. No, there's no, yeah, it's but you feel it, like you do feel it. And those are real feelings. And what does it mean in the grander scheme of things is kind of, yeah.
I don't know. But if Jordan had went and played for China at the Olympics, I would have been very, very upset as a young child. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like it does matter that they represent your country, you know, even though you're never going to meet these people, it does matter.
That does remind me, there is a, what is his sport? He's like jumper.
High jump?
Long jump, is that it?
Oh, the high jump with the pole?
I think he uses a pole. And he is American, but he is on the Swedish team. And he's very, 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 very good. And because of that, the Swedes are like obsessed with him because he is American, but he chose to come to Sweden, which really has to do. And I think he even said, it's like, well, you're one little guy amongst the huge sports complex. You know, there's no guarantee that he would have received the amount of like training or, you know, investment and stuff like that. Whereas like, well, here it's so easy because you guys have good training and I can actually have like a career just because you guys are obsessed with me for some reason. Like, you know, so it does become like a representation of like, yeah, you chose us.
Yeah,
so the Chinese would have been very happy.
Yeah.
Back then. Like, you chose us.
They're probably breeding some 7-foot players that are going to come off in a few years, but
I wouldn't even be surprised.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know what it is, but when you see someone from your country winning,
you feel it.
You feel it. That it's something different.
Yeah.
It's pride. And you've done nothing. You've done absolutely nothing.
No.
Anyway, we didn't get to talk about astroturfing at all.
So sorry. But yeah, that's what I meant with like everything is sort of tied together. It ends up being like everything because it kind of all ties into it. But I feel like astroturfing, if I can say this like shortly, is part of the reason why there's so many sub-factions and why they feel so strongly is because they've learned how to spread different messages to different groups of people. so they can spread the messages that they want to hear. And then each group thinks, well, we're the ones that are being like, we're right because we're getting all of this. You guys are delusional. But meanwhile, they're getting something else. So the more your own identity is built up into the silo, and then you see like, why are those people doing the same thing? Like, I'm the one who's right, you know? And I feel like that's partially why the aggression towards each other sort of happens.
Well, astroturfing it's in fandom, but you know, it's in politics a lot. It's in marketing. Yeah. It's in propaganda, as far as, you know, you see it right now with Russia, Ukraine, totally opposite narratives of what's going on. The same bit of information will be misinterpreted or interpreted in different ways by different groups. Yeah. And then astroturfing is actually very, very important, but we see it play out in fandom. Yeah. With probably the least stakes in fandom.
Oh yeah, for sure. The stakes are all personal, really, which is always why I'm like, yeah, here I am writing about fandom. These small things, people getting upset over, you know.
But it's the process repeats, not just in fandom. It repeats for tribalism. We're talking about the country. Okay, the Olympics, it's cute, but now we're going to war. Well, these are the same mechanisms, except these people are willing to kill for it. Yeah. Yeah. So it's important if you can figure it out with fandom when there's no stakes or very little stakes. Yeah. And now when it's time to apply this to something with a lot of stakes, now at least we understand the basics, the mechanisms for it. Yeah. Real quick, can you explain to people what astroturfing is?
Yeah, astroturfing comes from the fake grass that they lay out, and it's about spreading a message as if it were a grassroots initiative, but it isn't. Like, it's coming from corporate, which happens a lot. Like, almost every single artist that you see that's big, like, has benefited from that. Christina Aguilera was launched with Astroturfing, where they went to Britney Spears sites and were like, you know, come over here instead. And like truly, they would go to other fan sites and like try to leech people off. And it could be, anything from, on Tumblr, you can use the anonymous feature. So you can send the same message to like 10 different big blogs, and you just need a few of them to answer. And then you can start spinning that. And that, because it doesn't even have to be something they agree with. It could just be like a crazy theory. Like, oh, they're going to get married this Sunday. I know, dot. And then it just looks so ominous that some people are going to start to like freak out and be like, oh my God, what if it's real? You just have to see it as an anonymous message. And then suddenly some people are going to start like panicking.
You get the engagement we were talking about. Now these people engage and they start to put their effort into something that was a lie to begin with. Yep. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. That is really interesting. And I guess these people who were doing the astroturfing for Christina Aguilera, they're getting paid to do it?
No, that's what's so interesting, is that there is no payment involved. Oh. And the articles there were a few companies, like one called Buzz Agent, I guess, that would hire people and pay them, but it was not much. Like, it was like an extra job. But as soon as they start recruiting fans, it's all free. There's no payment. They can get swag, but you have to like collect points and like cash it in for swag. So it is so economical for them, it's like, you just got to keep poking at them and be like, and what I found crazy is that you actually see, so stans are the ones that will be like, we have to keep streaming, right? Stream this song to 200 million because it's a milestone. That's the word. Like, it's a milestone. But then you look at this history and it's like, oh, there's an actual team saying it's download day. You guys should try to download the song at least 20 times from iTunes. You know what I mean? Like, it's all fake, basically. So it's not even just that fans themselves are, gaming the system, but the corporate is also gaming the system.
Well, if the corporate does it, that's fraud now.
Well, they've been doing it for ages. I think that's why they get upset that fans try to do things, because they're like, this is messing with us. Because they'll do things like sponsor deals. This was with Rihanna. Rihanna did this. I think it was Samsung, but don't quote me on that. Where there was some sort of deal. So they received like 1 million CDs. And that was like, okay, so now she has platinum.
Okay, I guess it's
they're going to give them away on their hand. But it's like, okay, so because they just went in a bulk to Samsung, it's like, well, it's 1 million sold. It's gone platinum.
See, if this were a stock, then you could say it's fraud because you're inflating the price off of something else. But I guess that doesn't have the same rules in the music industry at all.
No, but they keep updating them. Like Billboard has had to change their rules repeatedly because of the way that they kept getting gamed. Like one of the ways is if you've ever bought a concert ticket and they're like, you'll get a copy of our CD, that's to increase the charts. If you've ever, it was Travis Scott, I believe, that did this, and then they had to like shut it down after that because he didn't even do that. He did, you can buy a shirt for me, and then you'll get a voucher for a future tour, possibly. Maybe you'll use it in the future, but there's no actual tour to use it on. So it's basically like meaningless, but that was used to like rack up numbers because there were releases of exclusive merch like every day. So the dedicated fans want all of them, which means that each of them will receive like 50 copies, which adds up really, really fast. And that's partially how, and that was like a whole thing when Nicki Minaj blew up at that, because she was like, they're blocking my album from #1. And it's like, well, yeah, they are.
I mean, well, if
personal, I think it's personal, but they're definitely blocking the other people because they want to hit #1.
Yeah, I mean, if #1 means anything, if #1 translates into any kind of sales, then it's prestige. And the prestige doesn't translate into any money whatsoever.
I don't know, but it gives you, I think it's more of a thing of like, the more people think, there's one book that basically explained like, this is how you create a hit song. And nowadays, how you create a hit song is you just put it Spotify's playlist, like the New Music Friday. Immediately you get like, 40 million listens. So it's like, cool, it's a hit now because it's immediately gotten all of those hits because, X amount of million people follow that playlist and don't go looking for anything else. That's their radio. But back in the day, it would be synchronized. So you would have deals with radio to play the song every hour. And then you would have deals with here and there so that it would be everywhere, but it's not organic. Like it's been planned that you hear it all the time so that you feel like, oh, it's everywhere. Therefore this song is a hit. And the hope is that it will perpetuate itself into being an actual hit. Basically.
Well, the more people hear songs, the more they like songs. So it is just by playing them the song, they're going to now like the song, even if the song's no good. Honestly, we all hum songs that we're like, this isn't even a good song.
Yeah.
It's just on repeat, massaged into our brains.
They used Rihanna's Umbrella as an example for that. And I was like, well, that explains a lot. Because I remember when that came out and I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I don't like it. I'm like, what is happening? Why is this everywhere? I warmed up to her later on, but it was just like a thing where I was like, what is going on? So
Upon the Replay was good. I remember I liked her for that, but Umbrella, I was like, this does nothing for me. But when she came out with Upon the Replay, I was like, okay, I can deal with her.
Oh, she has some really good bangers. That's a case where I wonder about fan entitlement because she has a lot of music fans, but when did she last release music?
Stay? When was that?
I mean, it's a while ago.
Yeah.
Because she's been doing Fenty makeup, Fenty beauty, all of that, and now she has a baby, right? Did she give birth already?
I'm not paying too close attention.
No,
but
neither am I. But I'm like, she did look like she was ready to pop. So, well, yeah.
She's probably in the process.
Yeah. But there are like every single time there would be something, people would be like, where's the music? When is music coming? Please tell us when music is coming. And they're like, I mean, this is nice and all, but we're here for music. When is the music coming? That would be something interesting to see, a future plan for myself to sort of figure out how that expectation can be managed when there's nothing on the horizon, really. Does she want to keep doing music? I don't know.
People outgrow things. I mean, I know she was a singer, a dancer, or not a singer, you know, her whole life, but it comes at a certain point, you're not gonna be a pop star anymore, especially if you have a baby and you got a business that's making money. And some artists, they'll be this kind of artist and they'll switch to this kind of artist, and it's the same artistic outlet and it's something else. So if she's doing clothing design. Mm-hmm. I'm in the group. We can't ask anything from these people. You know, she gave us 20 years, or how long has Rihanna been out now?
Oh, well, she was super young when she hit the scene and, hit the ground running. And yeah, it's true. They don't owe us anything. I think that was something that we faced a lot in One Direction as well, where it's like, this became part of the problem is when you start to observe the industry. Sabotage is such a scary word, but you notice how certain artists are being held back and you're like, well, we're here, we want it, why won't you do something for us? Not to them specifically, but saying we can tell that they're being held back by the label. And then people would be like, why are you so entitled? You think you deserve music? And it's like, we're not mad, first of all. Also, we're not saying we need it. It's when someone, you could see it with some art, Sky Ferreira is one of those artists that has been constantly held back, where she's been like, my album is finally coming. And then it's like, oh, JK, they pulled it. Maybe I mentioned Michelle Branch at some point, but she has had an insane, Michelle Branch, Everywhere Girl, hit song. She has a Grammy, but she was on Warner, I think, or BMG for 14 years. Didn't get to release any music. She was writing. She had an album that was going to be released. There's even still an article from Billboard or Rolling Stone or something like that, where they're like, oh yeah, it's for the launch, and here's the single, and there's even a music video shot, and that was pulled. They were like, we're not gonna release it.
Why? Did they give a reason?
They have to spend money to promote it, right? And I guess they were just like, nah. And then after that, she was let go of her contract, because it's about fulfilling it. It's not about just waiting. But yeah, and she was stuck for 14 years. I'm like, that's your entire, that's your career.
Yeah, she was sabotaged by her management. Yeah. There are stories in Hollywood where, these are horror stories, and it's never happened to me, but there are stories where a big management company will take on a client just to sabotage them, because they don't want them to compete with another client, and they won't do anything for them.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you even said that, because that is a theory that people have had. And then others are like, no, you're so crazy. That's a crazy conspiracy. And it's like, no, it isn't. And labels will sign. They did an example with Bieber, back when he was gaining popularity, and then all these copycats came along. So the label that has him will sign copycats so that they can't keep going, and they can just pour all the money into him.
Why is it a conspiracy theory? Companies take patents, they buy patents, and they take them off the shelf so they don't compete with the product. If they can, they're gonna.
Like I told you, it's because of the different sub-fandoms that truly believe in, in the One Direction case, it is because I'm still quite a big fan of Louis, just because of that. Because for years and years, you're watching how the label is just we're not doing anything. We're not doing anything with them. We're not doing anything with them. And everyone and he was on the same label as Harry. So everyone who is Harry's a saint, or well, he would never be on a label that's mean to this person. So he must not want to release music. And then it's so why did he sign a record deal? Why did he tease a tour in 2017? Why did he tease all of that only for it to get pulled? And if you pay attention to what people are saying, you're like, oh my God, yeah, we're seeing all of it. But yeah, it's a conspiracy, because
there's snakes in finance, there's snakes in DC, there's snakes in LA. These personality types they'll make a way for themselves, and they'll make themselves get to the very top. And it's just how they want to express it. They want to express it through politics, through finance, through media, or Nashville or wherever. So you can't put it past them. That's all I'm saying. But you got to watch out for it. If you're up and coming, you really got to watch out for this stuff, because there are some people who will try to sabotage you.
Oh yeah.
It's unfortunate.
It's pretty crazy. I know Christopher Eccleston said he played Doctor Who briefly. I don't know if you are familiar or other people are familiar. And he left Doctor Who. And because he did that, he said, like, the BBC would not have me on anything. They refused to even he was like, I was completely shut out because I decided to leave the show. And I was like, wow. But also, I believe it.
I absolutely believe it.
Yeah. It's just like, of course, because, yeah.
That's why I'm so glad that we're in the new media phase right now, because that you'll never work in this town again. It's harder to say that now because you can just go straight to the internet.
Yeah.
Which,
so maybe you won't work in this town, but you'll be working.
You'll be working, you know, if you have something to offer, it'll get out there. And I'm at the point where I know it's silly, but I'm like desperately trusting the market to find talent. Right. And maybe go around some of these management companies. Cause I'm like, it's so important that art gets out there.
Yeah.
And if egos are getting in the way, if whatever is getting in the way, it has to stop. And somehow it has to stop by the market. I don't know how we get from here to that point, but I'm like, please let there be a way that forms.
I think there is a way. And I think as long as and I just say we as like we in general, not pressuring you into anything, but I feel like as long as we sort of try to find up and coming artists, up and coming anything, and sort of try to support that, then you're already sort of helping them, you know, keep going. And then maybe they'll sign with something at some point. But that's not now, you know. You can't just be like, well, if I support them now, then they'll eventually like become an industry hack. It's like, okay, cool. And then by that time, there'll be someone else that's new and up and coming that needs some sort of support, you know, concert attendances and stuff like that. And like movies, like I love finding movies that are just like they never received like a big PR push, but they can still be amazing because they're a contained thing that lasts forever. You know, you can always
there's this family called the Addams family, and they make movies. And I would seek them out and watch their movies because I'm like, this is art. This is someone contributing to the craft. That's where I'm at. Like, you have to advance the craft. Mm-hmm. So when I see someone advancing the craft, I'm all about it. All about supporting them. So the Addams family, music. I know musicians, so I'm partial to musicians, but I understand movies much more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I loved the mumblecore when that was a thing. I know a lot of people hated it, but I was like, this is so different. I'm not used to movies that are this like low key and sort of, yeah, I liked mumblecore.
Hey, you got to support what you like because, you know, the fans got to authentically, not astroturfing, say, I like this and I want more of this. If you astroturf, you get in trouble, you know, you skew the numbers. But if you say, this is what I want, please give me more, and everyone can be making fun of you, but they have the things that they like. Everyone has their guilty pleasures. So if you like it, come out for it, you know, support it.
That's how I feel as well. Like I've just like not like I said before, like I was never like secretive about my fandom stuff. And it's like, people have teased me. And I'm also like, okay, cool. I don't care. Like, what is that affecting me in some way? What do you spend your time doing? Playing video games? I don't want to be doing that.
They got fandom
make fun of you for that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
They got their fandom, you got your fandom. It's fine. As long as everybody good, you know, pays their bills, that's all that matters. At the end of the day.
True. I gotta pay bills. We still gotta pay bills.
That's it. You pay bills and you do what you like, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just whatever to keep us going in this dark world.
Exactly. If it's Dolly Parton, if it's Jesus, just go on about your day. You're fine. You're doing fine. Especially this lady who solved all her health problems off Dolly Parton. She's winning the game. I don't care what anybody says.
I know. It's pretty cool. I mean, and of all celebrities to be into, I'm like, Dolly's a pretty good one.
She came up from nothing. Yeah. Like, I'm not a Dolly Parton stan like that, but like, I will go into the Dolly Parton story and be like, she is a national treasure.
Yeah.
Like I do believe that there are certain people, Michael Jackson, Prince, Dolly Parton, where it's just like, this is a gift. Let's appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah.
A talent. Talent is one of those things that humans have that very few, even machines, they don't have. So that's why when I see talent, I'm like, this is irreplaceable. This cannot be replicated. This is something transcendent, you know? So that's where I'm, but I'm an artist. I have to believe this. If I didn't believe this, my whole life would be for nothing.
No, I agree with you. That's also how I love consuming art, stuff like that. Because I feel like, isn't narratives, stories are what we as humans connect to the best, and I feel like learn a lot from. So at least that's also my hill, to be like, oh, the creative industries and everything. Yeah, they may be industries, but you can still find the gems. And sometimes some of the really out there like directors just need a little bit of restraining and then they do like amazing. Because that's what's funny is like when you see them that are like Josephine, what's her name? Josephine Decker is one that I was like, she's very interesting as a director, but is like very abstract. And I'm always like, okay, well, get her into a studio and she'll have some restraints, but it'll shine through. Like it'll come through beautifully because she just needs a little more containment, and then it will be like, then I can recommend her movies to people that are, not into artsy.
Make them more marketable, make them more, and you hate to say it, but like, can we make this more digestible? Let's say digestible is a better word for that.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And it can be the entry point to all the other stuff. That's been me with a bunch of bands where like I heard their big mainstream push, and I'm like, oh, I actually like this, but let me listen to everything else they've ever done. And then you're like, wow, this stuff is actually way better. Like that's happened with multiple bands. So sometimes that mainstream thing can sort of help you find, other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Monia, it is always a pleasure to have you on.
It's been, I love talking to you. I'm sorry if I definitely like skewed, I sort of made the conversation stray.
No. We talked about exactly what we were supposed to talk about. I feel we got to the core of a lot of issues here.
We solved all of the problems.
We did. We should send this to the president.
And the vice president. And,
we have different
Boris
presidents.
Is not going to do anything. No. Boris can just like...
He's not going to watch it. He's going to say he's going to watch it, but then he's not going to watch it.
I know. His hair is worse than Trump's. Like, how is that possible? Very off topic. But like every time I'm like...
Yeah, hire hair and makeup. Come on. Get someone working in here. We can get another job.
Yes, that's right. Unemployment.
I'm all about people working.
Yeah. And that's also why we have to support the creative industries so that people can keep working. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yes. Thank you so much for having me on, taking the time to talk to me.
Okay. Well, I will see you next time and we will talk more about astroturfing. We'll stay on subject.
Yes, we can do that. I promise.
All right. I'll see you later, Monia.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.